Okay, we should now be live. Hello everyone and welcome back to the second division group here at GT Sport on Gavra Racing. We're here for round 7 at the Red Bull Ring, and as you can see by the conditions, if you didn't watch the first group's race, it was quite soggy, and it's the same here once again in Austria for the first wet race of the season and the first wet race of the league that these guys are going to be experiencing tonight, and it's the Red Bull Ring, the chosen track to do exactly that. And if you didn't watch yesterday's race, when it gets uploaded to YouTube, if you don't have Twitch Prime, I would highly recommend you go watch it, because it was such an entertaining race. Definitely a challenge for all the drivers to keep on the track, but it's provided some great overtaking, and being Austria, being the Red Bull Ring, we had the overtaking that we all wanted. Anyway, here tonight for the second division, we're here at the same track, the same conditions, the same time of day. The same rules apply usually. We've got the 18-minute qualifying, we've got 15 and a half minutes left to go before the 31 laps that will ensue after. Anything else I need to say? Tyres, drivers are restricted to the intermediates or the wets, as the conditions are suited for those selected tyres, obviously. We've got a nice mix of tyres. We've got Andy on intermediates, Wolfie on wets, the Scout down on Inters, Tyler, Melix Sanders, Ted joining them, Tom the Bomb on the wets, and Cutlery Hands on Inters as well. Unfortunately, only 8 drivers here tonight. I know quite a few people couldn't make it for tonight's one. Maybe backing out of the challenge of some wet weather, I don't know. I don't want to assume that, and I hope it's not, but I think there are probably some better reasons for not making the race tonight. Hello Black Country in the chat, hope you're having a great evening here tonight and are excited to see what these drivers can do here at the Red Bull Ring. We do have the qualifying session underway, and we're able to start a little bit early tonight, about 3 minutes early, seeing as drivers can make it, and everyone that could make it is here. Meanwhile, ND is about to show us what he can do in the Lamborghini Huracan, a car that Thunder proved yesterday was actually a really good car to drive in these conditions at this track. Running a bit wide and picking up a 5/10 penalty in the process, and is going to serve it just before the line. So this lap is about to do, it's going to be slightly compromised, having had slowed down through the final corner. But it is Wolfie who puts it on provisional pole, 1.3 seconds clear of the Scout Dan, who is now dropped down to 4th place after Melix Sanders and Kyla Love go up into 2nd and 3rd place respectively. 1 second separates Wolfie, your championship leader, from 2nd place Melix Sanders on the grid. Ted currently in 5th place, 1.4 seconds behind his teammates. Cutlery Hands in the Subaru moves up into 6th place, and this could be a potential car to watch here tonight. 4-wheel drive, might look like a bus or a mum's car or whatever you want to call it, but that 4-wheel drive, along with the Lamborghini Huracan, could be 2 cars to watch in this week's race. Someone else to watch though is Ted, currently in 5th place. We know he likes the wet conditions, especially from the Formula 1 side of the league, and he didn't do too badly in yesterday's race, being a replacement for the absent Hussein. Currently in 5th place, so less than a 10th actually, behind the Scout Dan, who's less than a 10th, behind Kyla Love, who's only 2/10 behind Melix Sanders. So it's really close currently in this qualifying session, but your championship leader, who's pulling away in the championship, is currently pulling away in this session. 1 second is his advantage to 2nd place Melix Sanders. 8 drivers on the grid. ND currently at the back of the grid, having had the penalty for going wide down at the penultimate corner. 5/10 was added to his time, and then decided to back off and kind of compromise this lap and go for it again on this next one. And he actually decides to come into the pits, put on a fresh set of intermediate tyres. Meanwhile, let's see if Wolfie can improve on his time. It was a 46.7. Does a 47 flat, doesn't improve. Can Melix Sanders improve? Got a few drivers coming across the line. It's Kyla Love and the Scout Dan who both improve. Ted improves and goes up into 2nd place, and is only 4.5 tenths behind his teammate. There's a Manchester United Lamborghini pulling off to the right hand side. I believe that's Kyla Love, who got a penalty in last week's race for changing tyres during the qualifying session. Went onto a set of super softs after starting the session on the medium. This has been a rule and regulation since the start of the season to try and change and promote a variety of different strategies. Has it done that? Not quite, but in these Group 4 cars, when we get back to the dry running, I reckon it might do, with Manuel's strategy last week in Willow Springs proven to be quite effective. It's going to be interesting to see if many of the other drivers adopt that for next week's race. No, they won't adopt it for next week's race, because next week's race is a sprint race at Interlagos, so the tyre regulations will be changing for that. But all the drivers are fully aware of the rules and regulations, and I'm always there to remind them of what's going on. Wolfie, though, is on his qualifying lap. You can do multiple laps here in the wet, seeing as tyre wear is reduced. It's not on a reduced setting, it's just less. You get less tyre wear in the wet than the dry tyres. Allowing these guys to set multiple laps down the field, and should get quicker throughout the session. Your championship leader, coming around the final few corners now, will be aiming to spot his braking point. It's kind of a blind braking point there. I kind of use the pit lane as my viewpoint, but what can Wolfie do up to the line? Can he improve on his time? He does improve on his time by just less than a tenth of a second, with a 46.6 can Ted. Beats it, and then he kind of is 5 tenths down in his time, kind of into the pits, joining Melix Andils. His dad doesn't improve either, picks up a penalty. You can see indicated by the big P on the right hand side of the screen. That either means penalty or pit stop. As you can see, Kyla and Melix Andils both in the pits. Can Cutlery Hands improve? No, at 8 tenths down on his personal best, currently sitting in 8th place. ND's about to start his flying lap, so let's go with an on board of the Lamborghini Huracan. Let's see what ND can do. This is a really good car for this track, and a really good Group 4 car overall. You can see the understeer going into turn 1 in the wet conditions. They're able to hook up nicely and not get on that yellow sausage curb on the left hand side as they make their way up the hill in towards the little kink of turn 2. Named turn 2 because this is technically a MotoGP track, and is called turn 2 for the MotoGP bikes. Purple through the first sector, despite being 2 corners. Into turn 3 we go, which is where the Lamborghini really excels with its traction on exit, as the back straight in the run down towards turn 4. Many incidents have happened at this corner in real life. Hamilton and Albon, Perez and Leclerc, 2 examples. But let's see what ND can do, how he negotiates it. Use the inside curb to his advantage, gets on the power nice and early, doesn't run wide like a few drivers done in yesterday's race. Keeps it on the track. This is where the track's most slipperiest in its wet conditions, especially in the full wet, which is at an earlier time of day. Turns in a little bit early, gets on the grass on the inside. That compromises his line through the left hander of turn 6 into 7, braking just as the curb stops on the right hand side. He's understeered off, he's gone a little bit too deep there. You can just see the understeer and the car being pulled out to the right hand side. We've got a few drivers improving on their times, but I'll get back up to that in a second. Wolfie's going 5 tenths clear of his teammate with a 46.5. Ted with a 47 flat, Tom the Bomb with a 47.9. Into the final few corners though for ND. Hooks the first apex up nicely. What about the second one for the final corner? Doesn't go over the yellow sausage curb, and it's a short run up to the line, but it feel like a little bit longer than that in these wet conditions. What can ND do? He puts it on almost pole position. I thought it was pole position, but it's 1.1 seconds off pole position with a 47.6. The Irishman slots in between Cutlery Hands and Melix Andils. But it is your championship leader who is pulling away from the rest of the field, but Ted is definitely not a slow driver here in these wet conditions, and could be someone to challenge his teammates here tonight. I don't think he's going to hold anything back. I don't think team orders are going to stop him from overtaking his teammate to try and close down the championship gap after a few unfortunate races in the past. We've got the Scout Dan right behind him on track. In terms of the leaderboard, there are 5 other cars in between them. Currently running in 7th place, only 1/10 behind Melix Andils. Tom the Bomb only 500th behind him. He's currently 1.5 seconds down on his time, so he won't be improving. Let's see if Wolfie's on another flying lap. His his wet tyre, a bit more warm than the guys around him, but he might come into the pits and I don't know if he was anticipating him coming into the pits, but it is into the pits for a fresh set of wet tyres. Ted though is going to plough on through on his intermediates, slightly less worn, so it looks like the Inters have more less tyre degradation than the wets. Can he improve on his 47 flat? He almost does. I thought the line was a bit closer there, my apologies. 7 tenths off his personal best. Let's see what Kyler's doing through the middle sector. Only a 9 thousandths up on his time, little bit wide, gets onto the green curve. That could be a time penalty for using the green bit of AstroTurf, drifting the Lamborghini. And there you go, it is a 5/10 penalty, but look at this pace from Cutlery Hands in the Subaru. And someone who said this was a bad car, well, they're being proved wrong as Cutlery Hands works his way up to the front row of the grid, only 3.5 tenths behind Wolfie. And if he starts in second place, well, no doubtably he will be leading going into turn 1 with the power from the Subaru. But it's ND improving on his previous best by 4 tenths. It's a 47.2, puts him 7 tenths off provisional pole, and they're 3 tenths behind Ted. It's down through the first sector though. Let's have a look and see what's going on through this middle sector now. Ted being followed by the Scout Dan on track. Both drivers on the intermediate tyres. It looks like Dan just went a little bit deep, but I think he's been able to hook it up quite nicely, to be honest. Ted is 3 tenths down on his time, closer to 4 tenths. Let's have a look at, let's try and compare the laps. I think Dan could be on for a similar lap to what Ted's on here, so this could put Dan up the grid a bit if he's improving on his time. I'm not too sure. I didn't see the sector split through the middle sector. Ted running a little bit wide through the final penultimate corner and decides to dart into the pits quite lately. There's no real regulation or rule about coming into the pits as long as in the race you make it clear that you are coming into the pits. Let's have a look at this lap from Dan. Is not an improvement. 3.5 tenths down on his personal best, 48.2. Has 5 minutes to try and improve his current grid position. Wolfie still on his outlap. Will be about to start one of his flying laps. Let's see what Cutlery Hands can do. Does he improve? He doesn't improve. He's 4 tenths down on his lap time. ND coming up to the line. Can he improve with his 47.2? No, he can't. He's 7.5 tenths down. Tom the Bomb doesn't improve either. It's a 2-minute 1, so it's probably a slow lap or a mistake potentially somewhere throughout the lap. Kyler Love's on an out lap. Maddox Andrews is also on an out lap. Fresh intermediates for the pair of them. Cutlery Hands is only half a tenth down on his fastest time, so this could be an improvement from the Subaru, getting a little bit too early, too eager on the throttle through the traction zone of turn 3. Has Wolfie right behind him. Blue flags being waved for some reason as ND takes an adventurous line through turn 3. A line that Hamilton had to take during the 2016 Austrian Grand Prix, or at least I think it was 2016. Yeah, it was 2016, the year the two Mercedes collided down at the top of the hill. Someone's ran wide. It looks like ND off down at turn 4, presumably went a little bit too late on the brakes. So let's ride on board, braking almost at the 100-meter bar. That's not where you want to be braking. You can just see there's no stopping the car once you've broken too late, and that's into the shadow realm for ND. Meanwhile, someone's going to run the final corner. Let's try and find who it is. It's the Scout Dan, currently on a 1:40. Let's see if he can improve. As the run up to the line will feel like an absolute age, but is an improvement by 7.5 tenths exactly. Moves him up into 4th place. That's a stunning job from him. Splits the two Irish drivers of ND and Ted. Tom the Bomb's coming up to the line. No, that's not Tom the Bomb, it's Cutlery Hands, sorry. Both in blue cars. Does he improve and close the gap? No, he doesn't improve. He's 2 tenths off of his personal best, but someone who's keen to improve is Wolfie 907, improves by 200ths, with a 46.528 and extends his lead at the top of the session. Ted is about to start one of his fastest flying laps, as their dad picks up a 1/10 penalty for exceeding track limits on the exit of turn 1. Kyler Love, though, coming through the final sector now in the heavily Manchester United themed Lamborghini. I think the Lamborghinis are going to do well here tonight. The Ferraris might struggle against them despite their previous run of form in the championship. We'll have to wait and see who will get this one, which car is going to be more superior here tonight in this wet race here at Austria. But let's see what Kyler Love can do in the fresh intermediates up to the line. Does he improve in a 6th place? Yes, he does. He moves up into 5th place. Maddox Andrews unable to improve with a 150.3, presumably made a mistake, and it looks like Kyler's not going for it again, surprisingly, with the fresh intermediate tyres. Might try and go again on the next lap and have the slipstream from a fellow Lamborghini driver. And Maddox Andrews, teammates with ND, I believe, both driving the Lamborghini, so these guys might do well. They're definitely going to do well off the start, though. If you haven't seen Thunder start from yesterday's race, make sure to go check it out he was rapid off the line. Someone's coming into the pits. Ted's actually purple through the middle sector. That could be driver to watch. Hello Piero, hello Dutchy in the chat as well. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day and are excited as I am to see this race here at the Red Bull Ring for these set of drivers doing their first wet race of the season. But the Subaru driver, Cutlery Hands, is going to approach the line. Doesn't improve. Wolfie does improve. It's a slight improvement once again. He moves up further ahead of his teammate, who's 5 tenths behind. Can he pull it on pole position despite going purple in the second sector? He doesn't. But it's an improvement by 3 tenths and is exactly 2 tenths behind his teammate. And I said at the start of the stream that Ted is rapid in the wet conditions, and he is definitely proving that. He's a lot closer to his teammate here tonight than he has been in the previous 6 races we've had in this current championship. But Kyle Love is in the slipstream of Melex Andils, did back off though at the start of the lap, so won't be improving. Let's see if Melex Andils can set his personal best, move his way up the grid. Runs wide through the penultimate corner, might be given a penalty, runs wide again through the final corner onto the red AstroTurf, I guess you could say, off the Austrian flag, picks up a 1 second penalty, and that's going to be his lap time deleted, and more importantly compromised. Could be compromised even more for Kyler Lowe, trying to go for the a move on the inside, flashing his lights going into turn 1. Melex Andils has gone wide actually once again. That's going to be an additional penalty for the Irish driver, and might let Kyler go through in the run down towards turn 2 and 3. But time is up, and these will be the final qualifying laps that these drivers do. They have 2 minutes left to set a final lap, and the reason we have a 2-minute timer is because some of the longer tracks, such as the Nürburgring, take about 2 minutes for drivers to do a lap. You can customise how long's left in the session. For this race, only 2 minutes will be needed. Cutlery Hands will be the first driver to finish their lap. Can he improve from 3rd place? Doesn't improve in his time. Does Wolfie improve? Wolfie doesn't improve either. Can Ted knock his teammate off pole position? It looks like a good lap. It might be a good lap. Is it a good enough lap? No, it's not. It's only a 10th of his personal best. What can Tom de Bob do? Can he move his way up 8th place? No, he can't. What can Dan do up to the line? He doesn't improve either. It's a 46-1. That is actually an improvement. That is pole position for Dan. I'm not sure why that's not been given. Or if that was an outlap or something. That's really bizarre. Let's try and find someone else who's coming up to the line. ND, who won't be improving in his time unless he can serve his 2/10th penalty and improve on his time. That would be impressive if you can slow down and continue to improve, but it doesn't look like he's going to improve anyway. It's a 48.7 for him. What can Kyler Love do up to the line? Picks up a 5/10th penalty. Would have been a 47 flat, I believe. So that's the 5/10ths added on. So that would have been an outstanding lap from him, and that's qualifying over here tonight. It's Wolfie on pole position, Ted in 2nd, Cutlery Hands in 3rd, the Scout Dan in an impressive 4th place with Kyler in 5th, ND in 6th, Melex Andils in 7th, and Tom de Bomb rounds up the grid in 8th place. Unfortunately, it's only half a grid of drivers here today, but it might promote some closer racing. We'll just have to wait and see. Watch the Subaru, watch the Lamborghinis as we build to 5 red lights here at the Red Bull Ring for round number 7 here in the 2nd division. Your championship leader is on pole position, and it's lights out, and away we go. Look at the start from the Subaru. He's already leading, and we've only just gotten underway. It's almost 3 wide going in towards turn 1. ND on the inside. Ted and Wolfie have had a shocking start. The 2 Lamborghinis up into 2nd and 3rd place. Carter and Melex Andils going wheel to wheel, going up the hill into run down towards turn 3. The Scout Guard dropping down to 5th place as well, going down wheel to wheel with ND. Ted slotting in just behind, but look at the start from the Subaru. This is why it is not a bad car. It's already got a 9/10th advantage over his rivals around him. Let's look at Wolfie trying to make it 3 wide in towards turn 3. Melex Andils on the inside of Kyler. Wolfie might try and follow him through here on the inside, but the Lamborghinis on the exit just have the superior grip and the traction, having a 4-wheel drive car. Ted and ND going wheel to wheel now and down the back straight, but it's the Subaru that leads a race by 1.2 seconds. Hopefully Cutlery Hands can keep it on the track. What's late on the brakes for Wolfie? There's a bit of contact to the inside of Alexandros, and they're still going to go wheel to wheel through the kink right-hander of turn 5. Wolfie's going to have the inside line, but it will turn to the outside line for turn 6. Alexandros on the inside, Wolfie on the outside. He's going to get the grip in the second phase of the corner. He's still there on the outside. Ted in the background and moving his way up into 6th place after the poor start that both Ferrari drivers had from the front row. And from 1st and 2nd to 4th and 6th, it's not been the most successful start for those two. And as we're about to finish lap 1, all the drivers have made it through unscathed, and there's only 5 seconds separating the top 8. The top 8 being the whole grid. It's a McLaren 650S going down the inside of a Lamborghini Huracan as Tom the Bomb moves his way up into 7th place with a beautifully orchestrated move down at the penultimate corner. One lap done, 30 to go, and Cutlery Hands leads the Grand Prix here in Austria in the Subaru, proving that the Subaru is a goated car, despite what others say. Here's the Scout down, trying to go for a move down the inside of Wolfing towards turn 1, couldn't quite get it done, getting a bit out of shape on exit, momentarily going 3 wide as Ted now gets 2 cars in one corner, goes up into 4th place. This is exactly what he wants in this championship fight with his teammate, and despite his teammate being down in 5th place, he's going to want to hope that he goes down even further if he's to close the gap out in front as they make their way through the slowest corner on the track, turn 3, pretty much a hairpin corner as Tom the Bomb's got a good run on the start down here. He's got the inside line on the beautifully made Ferrari. Let's see what he can do in the braking zone. Has he gone a bit too late? It looks like he's gone a bit too late, but he's able to hold it. Nicely done from Tom the Bomb. Moves his way up into 6th place. Dan could potentially be struggling in the early phases of the race, but he's going to try and fight this one back to the inside. Is he close enough? Is he alongside? It look like he's alongside, and that's Tom the Bomb off and drifting into the gravel, doing the gravel doing what it's supposed to be doing, slowing the driver down from hitting the barrier. Let's have another look at that. I don't think there was contact. There might have been, but that's hugely unfortunate for Tom there as the Subaru Cutlery Hands now has a 1.5 second advantage over the cars around him. Ted ahead of his teammate Wolfie, Dan just ahead of one of his rivals, ND, looking for a move into the penultimate corner. Not quite close enough though. Maybe just putting Dan under a little bit of pressure to see if he makes a mistake. And I've made a mistake as well by not getting another drink of water like I did in yesterday's race. I've got about half a glass or half a bottle from this afternoon. And it's important, ladies and gentlemen, to stay hydrated. I'm going to have to take a break definitely at some point during the race. Meanwhile, the gap's starting to open up a little bit out in front. Second separating Alexandros and Kyler Love. Wolfie still closely behind his teammate Ted, as he's still probably going to want to work together to try and close in on the cars in front. Ted going a little bit defensive to the inside. I don't think he's going to want to let his teammate go through here. He wants these points to close down the gap at the top. But hopefully they'll have a nice battle here tonight, as it's going to have, well, definitely a battle is going to be brewing towards the top of the grid, with a Subaru leading the way, followed by 2 Lamborghinis, then 2 Ferraris. Dan just going a little bit too deep there into towards turn 4. One of the second mistake we've seen in this race from a drive. You can just see on the onboard a little bit too late on the brakes, and once you've broken too late, there is no recovering the car. Meanwhile, we go back up into the live action. Ted getting a 5/10 advantage to his teammate. I think these two are going to want to work slightly together to make their way up the order. Currently trailing Alexandros 1.2 separate seconds separating those two. Wolfie currently 4.3 seconds behind Cutlery Hands, who is leading laps here in the Subaru, more laps than I led in the Subaru last season, and he's doing the Subaru fan club proud as we start lap 4 of 31. I should definitely do more wet races in the future. We could get a championship of Subarus and Lamborghinis. What a championship that would be, as Kyler Love runs wide through turn 1. That's not going to compromise his exit. If anything, that's going to promote a better exit using more of the track. But in a second, you'll see the game actually doesn't give him a 5 penalty. I'm surprised he's got away with that one. using the track limits there on the exit of turn 1. But will be punished later in the race if he continues to do that. And actually, if anything, that's cost him more time to Alexander, who's gained so much time in the braking zone of turn 3. He's able to put it within the 6.5 window, just enough for the slipstream to become effective, as we are running a realistic slipstream to promote more overtaking and less fuel saving, even though weak slipstream has a wider slipstream range of about 1.5 seconds. Makes for closer racing, but drivers just decide to fuel save. But then it's better for their race if they come into the pits and have to put less fuel in the car, quicker pit stop, and they can get back out on the track and do their normal racing speeds. But anyway, only one stop needed here in this race, 31 laps. Fuel lasts about 16-17, so drivers should be in around that mark to make their one and only stop, unless they pick up damage in this race. And someone who's not going to want to pick up damage is Wolfie907, currently running in 5th place, with his wipers in full force, going around the final few corners. He's going to want to try and make up places in this race if he's to continue to extend his championship lead. Ted running a little bit wide through the final corner, hasn't cost him too much time though, but Cutlery Hands has lost a little bit of time out in front. Had a tough time last week at Willow Springs, making a few mistakes and getting into the beam with a few blue flag incidents. Ted picks up a penalty for that incident at the final corner. He's lost the rear down at the first corner. That's going to give his teammate the chance to go wheel to wheel up the hill in towards turn 1 and 2, but the momentum carried by the green and pink Ferrari is definitely going to be more superior than the red and pink one, as Ted ran wide through the first corner and got a little bit of snap of oversteer on exit, and that's the move done and dusted for Wolfie. He's got the move done up into 4th place ahead of his teammates, who could be under pressure from ND, who's got 1.8 seconds behind, and will be trying to close the gap to the cars in front, down about 4 seconds behind ND, 8 tenths clear of Tom de Bomb, who made that earlier mistake down at turn 6 on lap 2, I think it was. It's possibly lap 3, I think it was lap 2. But Ted's going to try and do his best to stay with his teammate here, just to try and close down the points in the championship, maybe try and put his teammate under a bit of pressure, maybe see if he can force him into mistake, so he can get those points for himself in the championship. It's all good being teammates and trying to work together, but each driver is going to have their selfish desire to want to win the championship. Look at Mercedes in 2016, for example. Of course, they were more superior than every other team on the grid. Both of those drivers were wanting to fight for the drivers' championship individually. A few times didn't end well, both drivers coming together. Let's hope that Ted and Wolfie don't have similar events to what happened in Suzuka in Group A, with Toussaint and Tiger colliding down at the hairpin on the final few laps. But anyway, Alexander picks up a 5/10 penalty. Kyla Love is closing the gap to your race leader, as Alexander is completely misjudged. His braking point there goes off at turn 1. Looking at the delta, he's actually lost time, so it'd be surprising if the game penalises him for that. It does actually penalise him for that, interestingly. Unfortunate for Alexander. But here goes Kyla Love to the inside of Cutlery Hands. I've accidentally removed the UI, but he's not actually close enough to go for a move there. But the two four-wheel drive cars kind of balance each other out on traction. Sorry, on the exit of the corner, on the traction. I can't speak. And it's the Subaru that maintains its lead. But for how much longer? Here comes Kyla Love to the inside. Is he late enough on the brakes? Not quite alongside, as Wolfie has gained time on Alexander's. The gap now 0.5 of a second. He's pulled out within the slipstream range of his teammate, 1.1 seconds now separating the two. The gap's opening up just a little bit between Cutlery Hands and Kyla Love. Seems that Cutlery Hands is definitely more confident in this middle sector in the Subaru than Kyla is in his Lamborghini. Interesting line there from Cutlery Hands, not using all the track on the right hand side. As here goes Wolfie now, looking for a move to the outside of Melek Sandals. Can he pull this one off? Melek Sandals is going to have the inside line for the final few corners. If he can pull this one off around the outside, that's going to be an impressive move from him. He's late on the brakes. Can he hold it around the outside? Melek Sandals doesn't give him the room and says, if you're going to want to come past, you're going to have to fight me for this. And maintains his podium position as things stand, finishing lap 6 and starting lap 7 for the guys out in front. as the gap is definitely coming down the straights. The Subaru lacking its straight line speed is now under pressure from the Lamborghini. Gets a little bit out of shape on the exit of turn 1. Here goes Kyler Love now. He's tucking into the slipstream of the Subaru. You can see the spray being kicked up from the rear tyres. Does Cutlery defend the inside? No, he doesn't defend the inside line. That's going to leave him vulnerable to the Lamborghini, who pulls over to the left-hand side of your screen. He's going to have the inside line for the corner. Can he pull this one off, though? He's going to try and hold it round the outside, but there's not enough room on exit. And Kyler Love promotes himself up into the lead of the race. Cutlery Hanso has got a good exit. He's got a good run. Is he going to try something in the run down towards turn 4? You can just see how big the Subaru is, covering the entirety of the bottom of the screen. He's late on the brakes. Is he maybe a bit too late on the brakes? And he's not late on the brakes. He's able to hold it. Here goes Wolfie down the inside of Melix Sandals down at turn 4. The two drivers for the leader also going wheel to wheel. You can see that in the corner of your screen there. Wolfie on this inside has got the move done up into second place. Here goes Kyler Love. He's going to try go round down the inside of Cutlery Hands. Is there enough track for Cutlery? Cutlery 3 to go around the outside? There is just. He almost went onto the gravel there on the right hand side. Wolfie making his way up into third place, but it's not done and dusted yet. Melix Sandals is still putting him under a significant amount of pressure, allowing Ted to catch up to this battle as well. But it is the Lamborghini who comes out on top in terms of that battle for the lead. Wolfie hasn't got the best of exits and is now under pressure from Melix Sandals. The battle for fourth place going into the final corner. This could allow Ted to go for moving towards the final corner. He's got a good run. He's just going to tuck in behind for now. Gives the Lamborghini just a little bit of a tap there, it seemed. I'm not sure if that was just Melix Sandals being a bit more later on the brakes than the Ferrari, but this is some great racing we're having here, and we're only on lap 8 out of 31, and look how close the top 6 are fighting here tonight. This has allowed MD to catch up as well. Melix Sandals looking for a move on Wolfie going to turn 1. It's compromised his line, and is now losing time going down the straight. Cutlery has lost a lot of time to Kyler Love. He's now opened up a 2-second advantage to the Subaru, and he's now under pressure from Wolfie, who's going down the inside in towards turn 3. Can he make this one stick? To the inside, Melix Sandals to the inside as well. They're 3 wide. There's a little bit of contact on exit, and this could be 4 wide into towards turn 4. Strap in here, ladies and gentlemen, as Melix Sandals is just ahead of the Subaru. They're going wheel to wheel with the Ferrari. Ted's got the best seat on the house to see this all unfold. They're trying to find room. As it's 2x2, Melix Sandals is on the inside, Cutlery Hound's on the inside. What can Wolfie do on the outside line? Ted's going to try and set himself up, and he's got a bit too deep and has gone onto the grass on the right hand side. You can see the traction where Cutlery Hounds has got a good exit, but he's going to go wheel to wheel with Wolfie, who still has the inside line, the outside for turn 5, but it's going to be the inside for the double left-hander of turn 6. I think there's contact between him and the Lamborghini. Ted's trying to get involved in this as well to the inside. Cutlery Hounds on the outside of Wolfie. Wolfie on the inside for the King left-hander of turn 7, and the King right in towards turn 8. This is a beautiful shot of the cars going through the grid. We've got so many different colours and different cars, but all going wheel to wheel, so closely contested here, as Ted's going to try and set himself up for a move on the Subaru going into the final corner. Couldn't quite make it stick, but Melix Sandals has made his way up into second place. Wolfie up into third, as Cutlery Hands into fourth place, and so many cars in such a short space on the track, and how no one ended off in the gravel, in the wall, or with damage. It's quite incredible, actually, as this Cutlery Hands proving that the Subaru is definitely a good car for this track and weather combination. He was struggling quite a bit last week in Willow Springs, but he's definitely found some pace in the early phase of this race, as he's now under pressure from Ted, who's going to try and find a gap on the inside. Cutlery doesn't seem to like defending the inside line in the run down towards turn 3. Ted late on the brakes, ghosting with a time penalty of some sort, and gets the move done up into fourth place. Here goes Wolfie Stray looking for a move of Melix Sandals. There's a little bit of door banging, and there was a bit of contact there, as almost looked like Melix Sandals was trying to push him off the track. I think he was just trying to tuck back into the slipstream. Ted and Cutlery Hands going wheel to wheel. The Subaru to the inside. Is he a bit too late on the brakes? He's able to hold it quite nicely though. Ted's going to try a switchback move, but the exit speed and the traction from the Subaru is just enough to keep him ahead for now. But for how much longer is Ted's going to have the line on the outside? Cutlery though is going to have the inside line. Does Ted have the grip there, or is he going to be pushed out wide like Leclerc was when racing Perez? Looks all clean, as Cutlery has now to the inside. These guys are just losing a lot of time to the cars in front. And it's Cutlery Hands who's able to maintain position for now. Ted, though, with a beautiful exit. He's Cutlery now finally defends the inside line, going into the penultimate corner. Can Ted work his way to the outside? But he's just going to back off there slightly and concede the position for now. But I don't think he's going to be behind for much longer here, as Kyler Love is extending his lead out in front. It looks like it's about 3 seconds potentially, as he's making his way up the hill in towards turn 1. And Cutlery Hands has actually closed the gap to Malik Sanders. It was 1.5, now 1.2, as Wolfie leads this train. 3.5 seconds behind race leader Kyler Love, who was leading in Willow Springs before the mistake and the grid penalty for using 2 different compounds in qualifying. Ted, though, gaining on Cutlery Hands. The speed of the Ferrari is definitely more superior than that of the Subaru, but he's not close enough to go for a move in towards turn 3. We're a third of the way through the race. We've still got 2/3 to go, as we're halfway through lap 10 of 31. Race update for you. Kyler Love leads by 2.8 seconds. The gap's coming down to Wolfie in second. Lennox Andils is in 3rd place, followed by Cutlery Hands in 4th. Ted in 5th place, followed by ND in 6th. Scout down in 7th after an earlier incident at turn 4. Tom de Bomb staying roughly 8 tenths behind him after he went off at turn 6. And overall, it's been a really good, really closely contested grid here, and proving that wet races have actually provided some good battles for us. Pierre in the chat saying wet races give great battles. I can't disagree with you there. Both races have been and were thrilling to watch, and I'm sure driving as well. Lots of concentration needed though to master these conditions. Can Ted look for a move in towards the final corner? There's a little bit of contact as he just taps the right rear tyre of Cutlery Hands' Subaru. That could leave him vulnerable to ND behind. Ted's in an awkward position here. He's going to try and look for a move and attack Cutlery Hands whilst also trying to defend from ND behind. It's really easy to lose your focus, especially in these tricky conditions. Just to lose your focus for a split second and make contact or make a mistake with someone. But it looks like he hasn't got the best of runs through turn 1. He's losing a little bit of time, and he's going to gain it back in the slipstream with the straight line speed. The hazard lights are on the Subaru, who defends the inside line, but not enough for Ted to look for a move on the right hand side of the track. Will be given the inside line for turn 3. Don't count out ND here. He might try something as he tries a switch back move on Ted. Can he get the power down? Not quite early enough, but he's got a good exit here, ND. He's actually managing the gap. He could be in a lower engine mode, as he did initially lose time halfway down the straights, but he's able to crawl it back and broke a little bit earlier for turn 1 than the cars ahead of him, possibly trying to get a good run, a better exit than his competitors around him. But still, 7 seconds between ND in 1st place. That's an average of 1 second separating each car. And the gap out in front is 2.3 seconds and definitely coming down. As these guys are still so close to one another, as Kyler Love, Maddox at Cutlery Hands is looking for a move on Maddox Sanders to the outside of turn 8. Can he pull this one off? That's going to be a thrilling move, but he's left himself vulnerable to Ted, who now has the inside line on the Subaru. These guys can go 3 wide in towards the final few corners. This is going to be close. Cutlery Hands making contact with Ted. I don't think he knows he was there. I'm not sure he's got his radar on. He's trying to barge his way through the Lamborghini up into 3rd place. I think there's a little bit more contact as he was trying to push. I don't think he knew Ted was there on the inside. Let's just have a quick look and see if that again. But you can just see there, yeah, Ted's alongside. Cutlery just doesn't know he's there as he barges his way through to the inside curb. I just don't think he realised that Ted was alongside. Ted, though, is alongside going into turn 1, hasn't got the best of exits. That's going to leave him vulnerable to ND. These two now going wheel to wheel up the hill in towards the in towards turn 2 and 3. But who's going to have the slipstream? Looks like ND's got the slipstream from the Subaru. Ted's just going to slot in behind 4 now. Who's going to be the last of the late breakers going in towards turn 3? It looks like it might have been Cutlery Hands. ND's going to try a switchback move, go wide, cutting deep and getting a good run. A good exit. That was someone off. I think that was Ted getting a massive snap of oversteer and exit. Let's have a replay and see what happened to Ted here on the curb. Doesn't get on the inside curb, gets on the outside sodded curb and is perpendicular to the track. Not the way you want to be facing, as he's now dropped slightly behind the Lamborghini of ND. He's 1.4 seconds behind these guys, and he's going to have to try and work his way back up through the field. Alexander is continually being put under pressure from the Subaru behind, who's run a little bit wide through turn 6. That could leave the Lamborghini, could give the Lamborghini, a chance to gain on the Subaru, as if these guys battling is only going to promote Ted to get closer to these guys, and also promote Wolfie and Kyler Love to extend their lead in this race. And I'm sure Ted's not going to be happy about that earlier mistake. He needs to get his head down and focus now for the remaining 20 or so laps left in this race. But he's caught up quite quickly to the back of ND, and will be trying to make some moves, get ahead of these guys and try and close down the gap to his teammate. We're close to the pit stop window, starting lap 13 of 31. We've been racing for about 20 minutes, I'd say. Let's have a look how long we've been going for. 21 minutes, closer to 22. As you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, the gap out in front is now down to 1.7 seconds. Will be setting the fastest lap, 3 laps to go. Is ND going to try and send one on Cartlery Hands? He is going to send one. Looks like it's all clean and fair with ND on the inside. Both cars having good traction momentum. The Subaru, though, more superior with its four-wheel drive and OP acceleration, and he's now gaining on the Lamborghini of Melexandros, who goes defensive. Cutlery's late on the brakes. Was it too late? Doesn't look like it. He's going to try and go around the outside in towards turn 4. That's going to leave him vulnerable on the inside to ND, who slots up through, takes the outside line for turn 6. Can he hold it on the outside? He's actually ahead going into turn 6, but that's not going to deteriorate the Subaru from sending one into turn 6. Somehow that was clean with minimal contact. ND gets pushed off wide. Not enough room there on the outside, as after that curb there is a nice big gravel trap for you to explore if you're willing to lose a lot of time. But they're 3 wide now. Melexander's in the middle of it, and somehow ND's come out on top. Where's Ted in all of this? Ted's in 6th place still, but I'm sure he's going to want to try and capitalise. Cutlery Hands is on the outside line. Is he going to try and go around the outside of Melexander's, but kind of cuts him off there on the inside curb. And it's quite aggressive tactics from these guys here, as he's now pushed wide from Melexandros, and that's compromised his run through the final corner. Ted's now going to say thank you very much and slot on through, and now Melexandros is going to send one down the inside. Ted leaves in the room, and there's not enough room for Ted to stay on the track using the outside curb there. And Piero pointing something out in the chat, and I totally agree with this at this stage. This is not going to end well if these guys continue to bully each other on the track, essentially. They're kind of using the cars to slow themselves down to try and get their way through, as Melexandros takes an adventurous route through turn 3 using a lot of the curb. But unlike F1, because these cars, well, because obviously the damage is not as much when you hit someone, you can get away with it quite easily. But you can afford to barge someone. That's late on the brakes for Cutlery Hands. And speaking of barging, barges his way through up into the podium position. And I'm sure stewards might possibly be looking at this race. I'm not too sure, though. It's hard to say from a neutral's perspective. Can't really put the blame on anyone unless it's a clear and obvious incident. But Wolfie's gained pulled the gap down to about 1 second to Cutlery Hands, as to Kyler Love, sorry, as Cutlery Hands, sorry, that's where I was going, has run wide through turn 7. That's going to leave him vulnerable to the Lamborghini of ND. He's going to try and go around the outside. They're 3 wide going into the final few corners. There's a Subaru in the middle of a 2 Lamborghini sandwich. Who's going to come out on top? It's ND round the outside of the Cutlery Hands. Ted to the inside of Melexandros. They're 3 wide going into the final corner, which switches to 2 wide as Ted backs out of that one smartly, as there's quite a lot of contact here. This is going to end up in a serious crash, and Ted now to the inside of the Subaru. The Subaru there's going to be looking for a move on Melexandros going into turn 1. Ted to the inside. Can he get this one done? This time he uses as much curb on the inside as he can to try and get the move done, and he's ahead of the Subaru just alongside for now. But with the Ferrari straight line speed should secure him 5th place in this race, and that's Wolfie gaining on the Lamborghini of Kyler Love. As these guys make their way up in towards turn 3 now, Ted goes defensive to the inside, but it's not enough to deter Cutlery Hand, for going for a move down the inside. A bit of ghosting as Ted serves his penalty. He's going to try and get the switchback move, get a good run on exit. Let's see what the Ferrari driver can do on the Subaru of Cutlery Has. He's going to go to the inside. He's later on the brakes. Was it too late from Ted? It looks like it was a bit late. Can he keep it off the grass? He does. But Cutlery Has does the switcheroo and promotes himself back up into 5th place. There was the opportunity for Ted, but a little bit too ambitious on the brakes, and is now back down in towards 6th place. I keep getting rid of everything by accident. We're trying to go back up to the battle for the lead, which is opening up to 1.2 seconds, and we're close to the pit stop window as we're approaching half race distance here on lap 15, about to start lap 16. As that looked like Kyler Love ran a little bit wide through the final corner on the mini-map. Looks like Wolfie's closed the gap down just slightly, as I think Ted might be considering an overcut. And I know that sounds weird, but if he can make the fuel last, he's going to have clear air if these guys pit. But he's also going to be putting in less fuel, as there'll be less laps to go. So possibly he might try an undercut, but it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously the undercut, it's not going to have too much of an impact. His tyre wear isn't that bad. But Tom the Bomb is into the pits with 2 litres of fuel remaining. Andy has actually been able to pull away from this train. It's now 1.8 seconds ahead of Melix Andrews, who's going to be under pressure from a dive-bombing Subaru. Let's have a watch of this. It's Ted late on the brakes to the outside, and what a move from Ted if he can hold this one around the outside of turn 3, but the traction from the Subaru behind is going to be more superior on exit in the run down towards turn 4. He just edges ahead of the Ferrari, but the Ferrari is going to come back with its more advantageous straight line speed. Who's going to come out on top as we go in towards turn 4 now? The Subaru on the inside. Can Ted hold it around the outside? There's a little bit of door banging between the two cars, and a Subaru versus Ferrari. It's been a while since a commentator said that on stream, or even real life, I suppose. I don't know if a Subaru has ever raced a Ferrari in GT racing, but it's happening here. It's happening here in front of your eyes, and Lamborghinis as well. But Cutlery Hands is able to maintain 5th place for now in a car that looks like it definitely should not be in this race, as you can see it's quite higher. Doesn't look like a race car compared to the others, but it's not about the looks, it's about the performance. Some people say about the Peugeot, and there's a lot of contact between the two. Ted barging his way to the inside. Cutlery Hands are trying to cover him off quite aggressively there, and I think it's only fair we get a replay on board with Ted. Let's go into the third plate, the chase cam, just to see what type of contact was made between the two. Ted to the inside. Oof, I don't think you can blame that on Ted for the second bit of contact. Cutlery Hands, apologies, Melix Andrews. So Melix Andrews into the pit, but Cutlery Hands was the first one to pull over to the right hand side when Ted was alongside, similar to Albon Gasly in 2019 Germany in the Hockenheim Grand Prix, and that bit of contact just put Ted off balance. Remember, this is a wet race. There is no grip. If you are hit, we're definitely going to be losing control of the car. And thank you, game. Look on the left hand side, they finally fixed it. You can see the fuel goes up. We can finally see that. That is something. Thank you, Polyphony. Thanks to everyone working at GT Sport. That is something I've been waiting for ages, as we have a battle for the lead now. Wolby is making moves up into the lead of the race. Can he hold this one around the outside and towards the double left-hander of 6 and 7? Kyler's going to have the inside line. He's late on the brakes, but is Wolby going to have the superior grip and traction? And he does. Makes his way up into the lead of the race. But Kyler Love, with the better exit, he's going to be alongside going into the penultimate few corners. He's going to have the inside line, but is he close enough? Is Wolfie going to be able to hold this one around the outside? We're just going to have to wait and see, and it looks like Wolfie's able to maintain, get up into the lead of the race, and that's Kyler Love diving into the pit. But something that doesn't probably sound massive was watching the fuel gauge go up on the left hand side. That used to be a thing in the game, but now and then it just went from 4 to about 80, let's say. But now we can actually see how much fuel the drivers are putting in gradually as the Ted going for a bit of Tokyo drift through the final corner. And this is the overcut strategy I said I think Ted would do. And I think it's a good strategy for him to do, as he now has clean air. Despite the 1 second time penalty, he can now push on his set of intermediate tyres and try and get out ahead of the cars around him. But going wide at turn 1 definitely isn't going to help him in his quest to get out ahead of the likes of Cutlery Hounds and ND, who has come out 4.3 seconds ahead of Maddox Andils. So that strategy has worked well for him. He's able to now push in clean air. And Calvin Gray, I complimented you for showing me the fuel gauge, and now you're not going to do it for Cutlery Hounds and Kyler Love. We all saw that, guys, didn't we? We all saw the fuel go up. That is quite sad, actually. I was just praising the game. I'm going to have to take back everything I said. Meanwhile, drivers coming out of the pits. Where's Maddox Andils going to come out in respective to Cutlery Hounds? Cutlery is ahead, but the speed advantage to turn 1 is more superior than the one out of the pit lane. You can see the gap is continuously coming down. It's now 7/10, but Cutlery Hounds has jumped Maddox Andils in the pit lane. Almost looked like he was going to go for a move down the inside there. That would be a second and a half to go back from 8/10 back. Does Wolfie come into the pits? Yes, he does. Lap 18, and your race leader from the wets is into the pits. Let's actually have a look at the tyres. Wolfie's into the pits from the wets. Ted, Kyler, ND, Cutlery, Metro, everyone apart from Tom the Bomb and Wolfie have opted for the wet tyres here. The rest of the field are intermediates. Now it's interesting actually what tyres these guys going for. What's going to be more interesting is has this undercut worked for Kyler Love? So he's making his way around the middle sector. Tyres being changed on the Ferrari of Wolfie. He's going to be putting in fuel. But what can Kyler Love do? He goes around the final corner. Wolfie's still in the pits. Ted's only just reached his pit window. It's quite a long pit lane here at Austria. Wolfie's been released. You can see him make his way through the pit exit. Whereas Kyler Love, he's only down the start-finish straight. And it looks like Wolfie's going to keep his lead going on the exit of turn 1. What about Ted, though? Where is he going to come out in this battle for 4th place? Here goes Maddox Andils going for a move in towards turn 1. Ted going through the pit lane. This is going to be close on exit with Ted just coming out the pits now. There he is on the right hand side of the screen. He's just behind these two guys, as these two are going to be slotting in behind each other. Ted as well, with a lack of momentum from coming out of the pit lane, he's going to have to just sit back and watch this fight unfold for a little bit before getting involved in the action. Maddox Andils is trying to cover the inside line. That's not good from Cutlery Hounds, who ghosted through Maddox Andils, serving a penalty. That could be a time penalty for Cutlery Hounds. Going through the ghosted Maddox Andils. This race caused such controversy back in season 1, which is why you brought in the rule you cannot overtake a ghosted car serving a penalty, and that all cars serving an intentional penalty must pull off the racing line. Yes, I understand that at turn 3 it's really hard not to serve a penalty because you can brake at your normal braking point and the game can serve about 3/10 of a penalty, and Ted's going to lunge one to the inside of Maddox Andils, and thankfully for the ghosting system there, otherwise that would have ended in a catastrophe crash, a monumental accident. But yeah, it was this race in season 1. It was in the dry last time. Saw quite a lot of people overtake at turn 3 through a ghosted car, and then we swiftly gave penalties for those who overtook through ghosted cars. So that could be one for Cutlery Hounds. We'll see what the stewards say. Hasn't given the position back as Maddox Andils is now down into 5th position. But he's going to be trying to look for a move in towards turn 1. He's gaining all the time on the Subaru. He's now pulling off to the inside using the straight line speed advantage in towards turn 1. Can he keep it clean? Ted using all the curve. Ted making this move, trying to play this one smartly, as he's going to have the best seat in the house. He's going to try and get a good run, a good launch, as there's just enough room on the inside, as he is now alongside Cutlery Hounds on the left hand side. Can he get past Maddox Andils, who covers the inside line? Has he covered it enough? There's not enough room for Ted to go on the inside, who he pulls over aggressively to the left-hand side. They're 3 wide at the apex. Ted's going to try a switchback move, but it's not going to be possible due to the 4-wheel drive cars in front of him, who're just going to get better races every time. But the switchback move is definitely going to help him go wide, cut inside and get a good launch. And this is going to get interesting down into turn 4. They're 3 wide, Ted on the inside, Cutlery on the outside, who does a switchback move. There's contact between Ted and Medic Sandals, who loses 2 positions in 2 corners. Ted slots in between. Cutlery Hands goes up into 4th place, 7.5 seconds behind ND, 4 tenths ahead of Ted, who's 2 tenths ahead of Medic Sandals. And I'm surprised that Dan isn't closing as much time as I thought he would. The gap 9 seconds behind. These guys might have made a slight mistake a few laps ago. The gap was 7 seconds between these guys and the Scout Dan. He could get involved towards the end of this race, as Ted has been absolutely sent by Medic Sandals, sending one to the inside of turn 7 and 8. Moves his way up into 5th place. And some people watching might assume this is a daily race rather than a league race, with the amount of contact that's happening in this one. Looking back out in front, Wolfie's pulled a 4.2 second advantage over Kyler Love in 2nd place. ND in 3rd, it's 5.7 seconds behind Kyler. Your top 3, Wolfie, Kyler and ND, but it's who's going to get 4th place in this one. Is Medic Sandals is under pressure from Ted, who's trying to go for a move down the inside into turn 1. Medic Sandals is going to send one in Cutlery Hands, and there's some ghosting. Ghosting is off, so it's just these guys serving their penalties. It's causing the ghost, but they're going to go 2 wide. Going up the hill, Ted's going to make it 3 wide between these two. Who's going to come out on top? It's the Subaru who has the inside line. Now Medic Sandals has the inside line. Ted on the outside, but it's Medic Sandals who's ghosting through. There's going to be contact. Medic Sandals has to cut the corners. There's a lot of ghosting as these guys pick up penalties. If only we had the penalty gates that would stop all these shenanigans from occurring. If anything, the ghosting is stopping the monumental accident. Dan running wide at the turn 3. I just saw that on the mini-map there. Unfortunate for him. Hopefully he can keep his composure as Medic Sandals is going down the inside of Cutlery Hands. Ted trying to work something round the outside of these two. There's so much contact between these guys. But thankfully, no one has ended up in the shadow realm just yet. But I don't want to say anything just in case. We're going to remove all the data on the right-hand side. As Cutlery Hands gets a little bit held up behind Medic Sandals there. That's going to leave him vulnerable to Ted behind. These guys battling is only just going to extend the top 3's lead. But still, they provided such an entertaining battle, I think it's fair to say. Ted runs over the curb. That might pick himself up another 5-10 penalty. Cutlery Hands is looking for a move on Medic Sandals to the outside in towards the final corner, into the penultimate corner. So here he goes to the outside. Medic Sandals is able to hold it on the inside. Can he try a switchback move? Ted, they're going to go 3 wide into the final corner. Ted on the inside, backs out of that one. Medic Sandals is having to run wide off into the Austrian flag AstroTurf as he rejoins, makes a little bit of contact with Ted, and Ted's now going to have a launch, see if he can make a move going in towards turn 1 on Cutlery Hands. He's going to do so. Pull over to the left hand side of your screen. Medic Sandals is going to send one. There's so much contact, and thankfully the penalty assist is stopping everyone from having a monumental accident. I'm sure the stewards are going to be looking at this race, but all 3 drivers making so much contact in this race, and I think it's definitely going to make them a bit more hot-headed in this one with 10 laps to go. The stewards might be busy after this one, and I almost died. I ran out of water, but wow, stewards are definitely going to be busy. I don't think it's fair to say. It's tough. It's definitely tough. Obviously, there's less grip. It's the first wet race we've done. You can just brake slightly later, but I think they're all 3. To be blatantly honest, it's been quite aggressive. I don't think Ted's been the victim of a few incidents. Medic Sandals though and Cutlery Hands have been very aggressive on the brakes down at turn 1 and turn 3. We might have to look into the ghosting as well. The overtakes made down at turn 3 and turn 1 have prevented a monumental accident. Ghosting though is off, but it is the time penalty that is causing drivers to ghost, because they would have been going slower through turn 1 than the game anticipated, which means the game indicates was indicating that they are serving their penalty. They get ghosted when they serve a penalty. And that's what's been happening down at turn 1 and turn 3. But Ted's going to try and set himself up. Go take a wide line through turn 1 to get a good slingshot exit in the run up towards turn 2 and turn 3. You can see here the elevation change. A total of 214.7 foot from turn 1 to turn 3. Highest point of elevation change at this track. Can Ted send one down the inside. Alexander covers the inside line. Ted's going to try and do the old switcheroo, get a good exit, which is quite hard to do against the Lamborghini, but he's done exactly that. He's got a good launch down the back straight in the run down towards turn 4. It's not exactly a straight, a few little kinks and curves. Alexander is defending the inside line. What can Ted do is he's going to try and work this one to the outside. He's going to try a switchback move, go deep, cut inside, get a good launch. Looking at the delta, and it was successful, but not successful enough to try and challenge a move in towards the double left-hander. Having said that, though, he's orchestrated this perfectly, but having said that, getting a little bit snappy on the rear on exits and kind of compromising his momentum. But he's going to use up all the curb on the right-hand side, try and get a good launch on the Lamborghini, who's also tucking into the slipstream of Cutlery Hands in front. Meanwhile, it's out in front. Wolfie 907, 3.7 seconds ahead of Kylan Love, who's 5.7 seconds ahead of ND. And these guys have lost so much time to ND. The gap was about 5 seconds a few laps ago. It's now 14.9. Contact definitely contributing to that one. Alexander's defending the inside line. More like dive bombing the inside line, getting the move done. We can get an onboard replay to see here how much contact there was between the two going in towards turn 1. Quite far back, you'd have to say. To be fair, braking at the usual braking point, and honestly, I'd say that was actually a rather clean move. But now we pay attention back in towards turn 3, and that's a late Subaru. Ted, though, is going to try and orchestrate a switchback move, trying to get a good run, but the four-wheel drive cars just have more superior traction, superior grip, as the Subaru is going to have the inside line against the Lamborghini. These two now going 2 by 2, well, 2 by 1, sorry. Effectively going down towards turn 4. This Lamborghini straight line speed has an advantage, but the Subaru Cutlery Hands are going to try the old switcheroo, go deep, cut inside, get a good launch. Can he get something on exit? He does. He gets a beautiful exit with the grip from the Subaru. But can he do anything in towards turn 6? He's going to try and send it, and Menace Sanders leaves the door open, but that door swiftly was slammed shut. Thankfully, no contact, as Ted's got some grip on the outside line there, trying to try and make something work. Through the middle sector, starting the final sector. We've only got 8 laps to go here. We're about to start lap 25, which will reduce the amount of laps by 1. That's a send, and a really aggressive send from Cutlery Hands. That's a lot of contact made between him and Alexander's. He's going to try the switchback move. That's going to leave him vulnerable to Ted, though, who's got a good launch in towards turn 1. These drivers are going to go 3 wide once again. Alexander is going to set himself up for a dive in towards turn 1. Is he going to send it? I think he's going to send it. Of course he's going to send it on Ted in towards 3-1. They're 3 wide. Ted's ghosting penalties thankfully stopped a monumental action, but I think it's made it worse for him an exit. He's having to cut the grass on the exit of turn 1, as we just have no room to go. We can get a quick replay of that. You can see he's being barged out of the way by the Subaru and the Lamborghini. If they had police liveries on, you would assume it's police interceptions, and Ted was under arrest there. You'd think this is a police chase with the amount of contact there is. Ted just seems to be an innocent victim here, as I've just noticed that the slowdown has disconnected from this one. We're now down to 7 drivers in this lobby. 3 of them might not even make it to the end of the race at this rate if we had simulation damage, and that's a lot of contact. That could be damage. Just going to check to see if there is damage. No damage, but that was this is getting tough for me this is you know when you upset someone on a daily race, this is the vibes that I'm getting right now. And I can see the chat are definitely making their point of view very clear. We're going to get rid of the MFD. I think it's fair to say that the leaders are going to pull away from this one. Ted is going to try and make his way around the outside of turn 8. I'm going to try and do my best here to make it through these final few laps. Just going to check how long have we got. We're on lap 25 out of 31. 7 laps to go. We'll be 6th when we finish this lap. Let's remove everything just so we can witness this in full view. Here goes Melix Sanders now down the inside of Ted, kind of barges his way through. These wet conditions, I think, are definitely having an impact on the cleanliness of this race. I think it's definitely being abused. Here goes Melix Sanders down the inside of Cutlery Hands, who rather shuts him off there. But I think this wet weather experience is definitely new to a lot of these guys who just aren't used to unused to these racing conditions. Maybe in the dry you can go down for these moves, but not in the wet. I think if these were in faster cars, if we were in Group 2, there'd be a lot more severity, a lot more serious incidents, and that's another late statement from Melix Sanders, who's using the car to get through because these cars are slower. Not in a league racing term, but you can afford just to barge your way through, the kind of almost as if you're wall riding on another car if you're going down the inside of someone, because you can be late on the brakes and just rest up against the side of another car. Obviously, that's not very respectful when it comes for league racing, something you can't do in other sports, such as Formula E and F1, two examples. This isn't NASCAR after all. We do have rules that people have to abide to, and hopefully they respect each other, and hopefully the final few laps of this race are cleaner than the previous 13 or so that we've been seeing from these guys. It started off clean and fair, but now I think it's getting a little bit heated, as if you make contact once, that's only going to increase the chances of more contact, as Cutlery Hands is trying to defend, but Melix Sanders is going to descend one to the inside. Probably one of the cleanest overtakes we've seen all race there, down at the penultimate corner from these guys. Runs a little bit wide on exit. Ted getting a little bit snappy on the rear. Meanwhile, Wolfie still leads this race from Kyler. Andy are your top 3. Meanwhile, it's the battle for 4th place and the battle to see. I mean, it puts a whole new meaning to Drive to Survive, as Ted is trying to drive to try and gain some more points and reduce the deficit that Wolfie's going to be doing in this championship fight. He's currently leading this race. He's going to go to the inside of the Subaru. Can he make this one work? To the inside, and I have to say that's probably the cleanest move we've seen all race from these guys. Cartery left in the room on the inside, didn't turn in at the apex, so I think that is probably the cleanest we've seen all race. It's not over yet though. Here goes Cutlery Hands in the Subaru, trying to make his way to the outside. I've slipped on the keyboard. He's late on the brakes. Is he too late on the brakes? He's too late on the brakes, and he's now into the shadow realm. And that is one car that has been reduced from this battle. And it's so unfortunate for Cutlery Hands. And some people might have some things to say about that in the chat as well, despite the earlier incidents. One word that springs to mind is something that Fernando Alonso said a few years ago. Some might see it as karma for the earlier sends on both Ted and Melix Sanders, but all 3 drivers have made quite a bit of contact. I don't think you can give them. I don't think you can say. I don't know how. I'm not going to say it on stream, but just to sum it up. I think it's definitely it's tough. It's definitely tough racing in these conditions. But yeah, what we've seen today is definitely not what we expect. But that is one driver out of the equation. Talking about Drive to Survive, Cutlery Hands done his best in the Subaru, but hasn't paid off for him. Currently now in 6th place, we're down to 7 drivers. We'll be scoring points. Can Ted close down 2 seconds in 4 laps? We'll have to wait and see. The battling has stopped. The contact has stopped. But this is definitely going to have to be one to watch back. I don't think the blame can be put 100% on any one of the drivers. I think it's got to be distributed between all three. Yes, some might say it's not my fault if I'm dive bombed, but it definitely hasn't been the cleanest race, I have to say. Promotes overtaking, it seems, these wet races, but yeah, Tokyo Expressway is just going to be worse if people are going to be sending it, especially down at turn 1 and at the final corner. Meanwhile, Wolfie has just started lap 29 of 31. Ted's closing the gap now down to 1.4. Whilst all that is over, let's actually get an onboard lap, something we haven't done in a while. So here we go, on board with Ted's bright red and pink Ferrari. Such a beautiful livery that Ted's running this season for his Group 4 car of choice. In towards turn 1, hooks up the apex nicely, gets a little bit twitchy on the curve. In the run up towards turn 3, flat on the throttle before braking just after the 150 board. Just after 150 board, sorry, before the 150. Hooks up the apex nicely, and you can afford to get on the power as early as possible, as these cars have less power than the other Group 3, Group 2 cars, even though we are in wet conditions. Run down towards turn 4, it's a tricky one to spot your braking point, 150 meter board roughly for this one, using up all the track on the left hand side before cutting over onto the curb on the right, using up all the track and the curb on the left hand side. Might not be the smartest move to get onto the green AstroTurf that's in between the curb and the gravel. That could cause the rear to snap out in towards the double left-hander, braking just before the 50 meter board. Easy on the throttle, it's really easy to get on the throttle too early, and understeer off into the gravel. Another corner that's really easy to get heaps of understeer is turn 7 into 8. You can see there Ted just getting a little bit snappy on the rear as we approach the final few corners just before the 50 meter board, using up all the curb on the inside, using up all the curb on the outside, and a little bit more for Ted, hooking up the apex nicely for the final corner, taking it a little bit too quickly, but that is a lap off the Red Bull Ring. Picks up a 1 second penalty to add to his 8 tenths, bringing his total up to 1.8 seconds worth of time penalties, as he's close within a second of Melek Sandils. Here we go then. Wolfie still leads this race. That gap is coming down out in front. And to note that if Kyler didn't put in a full tank of fuel at the pit stops, he could have been a whole lot more closer. But someone who's going to want to try and get close is Ted. He served 7 tenths of his penalty down at that corner, but has ultimately lost about 5 tenths to Melek Sandils in the process of doing so. Can Ted finish in 4th in this race with only 1 lap to go after this one? Fastest lap is currently being held by ND in 3rd place. We'll be picking up an extra point if he's able to keep it at the end of this race. 1 minute 46.1. Current fastest lap. Ted 1.2 seconds behind Melek Sandils, now 1.1. Can he close it within a second through this little section of corners of the double left-hander of turn 6 and 7? He's now within 9 tenths. Ted is gaining, but he has a 1 second penalty to deal with, as the final lap has begun for Wolfie, Kyler Love and ND. Drivers with penalties. We're going to look back down towards Ted, who's been at war, I think it's fair to say, with Melek Sandils, who's also been at war with Cutlery Hands, currently running in 6th place with a full 10th penalty. Here we go though, round the final corners we go. Ted now just gets a 2 second penalty. His chances of getting a 4th place finish in this race are slowly deteriorating with every time penalty he picks up. Wolfie's fuel light is on, however should be enough for him to make it to the end of the race. Ted's able to serve a few tenths of his penalty towards turn 1. Doesn't look like it's going to be enough though. Melek Sandils has pulled out a 2.3 second advantage. Might have made a slight mistake there, But, well, looking back out in top, I think it's fair to say it's been quite a nice, calm, chilled race for this man. Hasn't been involved in much of the action. He got to the front. Thank you, Tim, for liking my activity. What a way to get yourself promoted on stream. But it's been a very, really controlled race for this man currently leading the championship, who rounds the penultimate corner. He's only going to extend his championship lead. And here in Austria, usually the hills are alive with the sound of music, but here tonight the hills are alive with the sound of the Irish fans going crazy as Wolfie wins the first wet race of the season here in the Group B Championship. Wins by 4.8 seconds over Kyler Love and extends his championship lead, and ND rounds out the podium, serving his penalty in the process, finishes in third place. A good race from him in his battle with Alexander's head and cutlery hands. But the lead out in front has only just got bigger. Meanwhile, coming around the final few corners, it's definitely been a day of war, a day of battling, and one that might be looked at by the stewards between Malik Sandils, Ted and Cutlery Hands. So for now, Malik Sandils will finish in fourth place. Ted will take interesting lines through the final corner, finish in fifth place. Cutlery Hands in sixth. But for those three definitely being caught up in a lot of the action. Look at that guy waving the checkered flag. That's an interesting colour combination of suit. Just waiting on one more man to finish the lap, finish the race. Made a mistake early on in the opening few laps, and has made another one here down at turn 6. Has opted to cut turn 7 completely. Can he hold this drift? Almost. Just about. But a few mistakes from Tom de Bomb. The first wet race. He's going to finish with one. Only 7 finishes. But I guess it's only going to benefit those who are here. Those who aren't here are just losing out to others in the championship. Only 7 drivers finishing. 8 started. And Tom de Bomb's not even going to have enough time to finish the race. But similarly, in the Division 1 Championship, it's a familiar suit and a familiar name taking the top step of the podium. It's Wolfie 907 who wins this race here at the Red Bull Ring for round 7. Here are your finishing results. Once again, it's an Italian 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of car manufacturers. Lamborghini Huracans in 2nd, 3rd and 4th. But interestingly, it was the driver on the wet tyre who won the race. But yeah, I'm sure this one's going to be looked at. There was a lot of contact between these three in particular, evenly distributed between the three. But yeah, that's going to bring an end to this one. Join us next week for the second sprint race of the season. Second out of 3 sprint races, the new concept being added to the season. Penultimate season, I might as well add. We could only get one more season after Christmas before we are given, or before GT7 arrives. So who knows if we'll see another wet race after this one, apart from obviously Tokyo Expressway later on in the calendar. But I hope you guys have enjoyed watching, and I hope this one has provided some great entertaining racing despite the contact. From a neutral's point of view, it was definitely entertaining to say the least. But that's going to bring an end to this one here at the Red Bull Ring. Join us next week for Interlagos, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.